Not much. Slow down my morning shortly.
Yeah.
Okay. And then if I go share.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh. Hard ones to do it earlier.
A little bit of this asking the
People think that a big area of meetings we do.
Yeah. I think it's your first name, but also. Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I get, I'm going to. What's that? Yeah, Chris. There's no other that day. Yes.
Going on.
And then.
Yes. I almost felt getting out of the vehicle, but I was driving. Go down to work. At home, it was okay, but once I got to the office, it's like I stepped out like.
Hospital, I'm like, okay, meeting here. Like, okay.
Yeah, not pretty good. You probably don't want this doing on there at all, right?
No, I'll usually go work on
It's a morning.
getting into the building.
Okay. Good. How are you? Good. Josh. Good. How are you going? Stay warm.
I'm gonna get everything, get rid of everything, close it all down, get rid of all the records. Uber thing up to Seattle. We're gonna shut that office down. So I'm gonna have my plan activated. We have new reasons. Really, I'm plugging out the defrost. You know, they don't. Just go to the doctor, nobody. But yeah, just sad, you know, like something.
Your own bottle. They not understand. Store there.
Yeah. The officer was there before. We relocated one big side to the Long Beach, which is where we don't want like one fish wildlife.
Oh, yeah.
There's a multiple.
How are you doing?
I said you could be over there. Better taxes, higher pay. Yeah. Yeah, we're thinking the 7. No, we're thinking the 7. And then part of it. Yeah. They all see right? You're ready.
You know. Yeah. So, yes, I thought he says.
Yeah.
Service maintenance at the end.
Oh, So.
That way.
Oh, okay. Are you? Doing good. Thanks. I might just got over. You're in trouble now. I'm not Dan, I'm Jesse.
Oh, you are really smart. Yeah. I just forgot about I love that.
Yeah, because I didn't get the chance to talk to you. Glad you guys remember Sparky.
Sparky horse? Oh, go back and home.
No, don't.
Yeah.
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 Oh, probably. Yeah. Hey, you see?
Barely.
It looked like,
Right, like.
Yeah. Don't stop that.
in. You?
Not right.
There's Andy said we could love you, or you want to be here for the.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you know what? Shut the other one. If you don't participate, I'm gonna complain about what.
It's
not, right?
I say.
Yeah, so like it or don't like it.
Well, it's. Yeah.
Do we have anybody else coming in the door? Like anybody else pulling up? Are we ready to start? Okay, folks, if I can have your attention, please. You probably, I'm Dana Gould, I'm on city council. And I'm here on behalf of the city council to welcome you and thank you for coming in, showing up and participating in this. It's very, very important to us. If this were a Netflix drama, it's a little bit of drama, but it's not on Netflix, so I won't give you one of those season or series recaps. But what I will tell you is if you don't know, we've had a series of town halls that have gotten us up to this point. We know that this building that we're sitting in and the office that our police officers are working out of, there's a problem with them. And we need to find a solution to that problem. A lot of people in the community have different ideas about how we solve that problem. But one thing we've all agreed on is that the community needs to be involved in that process. So with that in mind, that message and city council set out along with the staff to find a team that can help guide us, help us all come to some type of an agreement as a community, keep us from making costly mistakes, and hopefully help us come up with a couple of working environments or a working environment situation that will not only serve the folks that are serving us better, but will help serve our community better and make them more efficient, make them able to get to calls and to help us in a more timely manner. And offset some of the other risks that we would run into if we didn't fix this problem somewhat soon. So with that in mind, again, we went out for the team. It was very important to us that we find a team that understood in a community like ours on the coast, and also with a volunteer fire department and a team that has also worked with law enforcement departments. And we found that a while back, if you've heard there, or you may or may not have heard, that we had a panel of citizens, staff, and Klosh Group, Jesse, who you met back in August. That was our last town hall, created a panel, and they interviewed some engineers, some folks to come on board and help us. And we have the results of that tonight. We're gonna introduce them to you tonight so that you can speak to them and they can speak to you. And then we all get together so that we've done our job. We created the team, we're putting them together with you, and now this is where the magic happens, we hope. Okay, and again, thank you for being here. Now you are committee members helping us design this. So thank you very much. So again, you've already met Jesse, who's standing up here. There are a lot of names that I will butcher if I try and tell you their last names. So I'm just going to introduce Ian and let Ian take it over.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ian Gilbert. I'm a partner with FFA Architecture and Interiors out of Portland. And we're very fortunate tonight to be here to help you navigate this process of putting the facility together. I'm going to ask the rest of the team to introduce themselves.
I'm John Peets. I'm a project manager with FFA.
I'm Carolyn Nguyen, I'm a designer with FFA.
And Phil Lopez, architect with FFA.
Thank you, we're gonna get started. And Chad, I don't know if it's an option to like mute the sounds of people joining, but those are the beeps you've been hearing of people joining the Zoom meeting.
On that TV, you could turn it down. I could make that change, but I'd probably.
That's
hang up
fine.
on everything.
These are just ideas. No, up. I got it, okay. this is an agenda for tonight. So what we're gonna do is, we've got a bit of a presentation prepared for you. We want to introduce what process we're gonna be following, what the goals of this community engagement process are. And we're gonna cover a little bit of like, what does a public building look like? What are some of the types of spaces that police and fire need to do their job? So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. We're gonna talk a little bit about the sites that we're looking at. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the makeup of a budget and some of the terms we're gonna be using throughout this process. And then we have a couple workshops. We're gonna break into groups. We wanna have discussions with you. So it's a little bit presentation, a little bit interactive. If you're watching remotely, I apologize, but we do not have the technology to like break into groups and like do the exact same activity with you. However, there is a poll that will be posted when we break into activity groups where it's actually asking you the same questions that we're asking people in person. So if you wait until that moment, there'll be a couple polls that you can respond to, and we hope to get your feedback there. Okay, the city council for this project gave this group, and you're now the building committee, along with us, gave all of us really some guiding principles for this project. And these are intentionally a little vague and a very broad, so that as a group, as we work through what this building wants to be, that we have some flexibility about how to interpret these guiding principles. And they are: one, to determine the project budget with community engagement, which means we're gonna be working through the design, we're gonna be working through the site layout with you, and then we're gonna be presenting costs. And together, we're gonna be kind of like pushing and pulling and evaluating different ideas to kind of get to a budget that the community can support. And that's what we're gonna bring forward to city council to start to debate. So it is a recommendation from this group as how we're structuring this project. Okay, number two is ensure, I forgot this was a touch screen. I thought I was gonna mess with that for a second. Ensure transparent and consistent communication. Okay, that means that we're here to share honesty with you. There's gonna be a lot of challenges in working through a project like this. It's not easy to design, it's not easy to figure out, and you're gonna get transparent and honest answers from us. And as we put together the budget, we're gonna share every single line item with you, right? This is about your involvement, and we want you to understand where this project is going and your role in it and how it's going to affect the community. So this is about that. All of these meetings will be recorded. They're gonna be put on the city website. Chad posts a blog, so they're all watchable afterwards. The polls that we put up should be available for about a week. And then on the next community meeting, we're gonna come back and kind of do a report out. This is what we covered in the last meeting. So there's gonna be summaries. So if you miss some meetings, it's okay. We'd love to have your participation at every meeting. This is an evolution of steps. It's not just like a one and done. So we'll hope you come back to future meetings as well. The third guiding principle is build a compliant and resilient facility for growth. Okay, the intention behind that is that, fire has some very particular needs they need to meet. They've got codes to follow, they have guidelines to follow for training, for safety is huge, how they respond to the community. Same with the police, there's a lot of needs that have to get met, like good radios, for example. And so that's our goal here, is to understand what the basic needs are and make sure they're met, so they're providing your community providing your first responders the spaces they need to do their jobs to serve you. Okay, and then we also want to think about resiliency, right? We know there's loads of hazards that could happen here, and you're gonna want your first responders to be available for you in a natural disaster. So we want to think about resiliency in this facility. And then there's going to be some growth, right? Your population and the number of police officers and it's not firemen anymore, fire people, what word do I use? Firefighters.
There we go.
Sorry,
Okay.
I feel like as a woman, I should have known that, I apologize. That their growth is gonna happen, and so, designing a building for exactly what you need right now is usually kind of a short-term solution. We wanna think, 20, 30, 40 years in the future. Okay, and then lastly, we wanna choose the location based upon citizen input, and the geotechnical information, which means geotechnical is what's happening in the soil beneath our feet. That dictates, it controls a lot of the costs of the building, depending on the soil conditions. And so we want to be evaluating that as we go forward and explain that to you so you understand some of the costs related to it. So these are our guiding principles. This is what council has asked us to meet as we go forward in this whole process. Nope, that didn't work. Here we go. And so we want to talk about the location of this building. So when we started this process, and when we were hired, even back at the August town hall, who was at the August town hall? All right, so most of you actually. So at that time, our charge was, we want to look at 2 different locations of this building and then do 2 different conceptual designs. So we have options to evaluate. And so what happened at that meeting, originally, the park had been an idea for a place that got killed pretty quickly. That's off the table. The school down the street had been suggested as an alternate site. That is not viable any longer for the permanent facility. And then we had also, there was a property across 101 that was for sale, that we were starting to investigate, but the owners of that building need to sell it in a time frame that won't work for this process. So the kind of the 3 other property ideas we had to look at for a site that is large enough for this building have all been taken off the table. And so at this point in time, we only have this site. And so where we're at right now, unless another piece of magical property comes for sale or is available, that what we're going to do as we go forward is come up with designs for this site so that we're really looking at different options there. That's really the only option we have at this point, again, unless like another property tends to come up. So this is where we're at right now. And it is different from what we talked about in the town hall. Okay, and then, so I'm gonna bring, John's gonna talk now a bit more about this community engagement process and what to expect going forward.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, it's great to see so many people out, because we're hoping to create a very collaborative and fun design process that's really centered on your feedback and engagement with you. And so the idea is I'll walk you through kind of that process so you can understand what's coming and how we're planning to get your feedback. But our goal is we don't want to do a lot of talking. We want to break out and do a bunch of workshops and get feedback from you in the process. And so, so overall on our process, our intent is we want to explore a wide range of ideas. And then through the course of this process, narrow it down to one recommendation that's in alignment with your goals. And so that's a multi-step process, and that's the reason we have the 4 meetings planned. But we're gonna start up front with discovery, where anything's on the table. We wanna hear your goals, we wanna hear kind of all the options and put them all out there. Then we're gonna work with you to prioritize and make sure we're the ones that have the most merit are rising to the top, and we're gonna align and kind of rank your goals and kind of work that process together. And that's gonna uncover the best solution that's gonna meet your long-term needs, your budget, and everything we've heard in the process. So that's what we're kind of taking you forward. Basically, it's set up through 4 meetings that I'll walk you through, so you see what's upcoming. But the success of this project will be, like Jesse said, you engaging throughout kind of all 4 meetings, because we're gonna get your feedback today. We're gonna build on that. We're gonna make some decisions based on that feedback. At the next meeting, we're gonna build and kind of get the feedback. So every meeting coming forward builds on itself to that final recommendation. So our hope is that you're able to attend as many meetings as you're possible and give us as much feedback in the process as you can. So I'll walk you through the 4 meetings. So this is our meeting today, and what we're doing is at every meeting, we're gonna give you an update on the program, the site, and the cost, and that's kind of our introduction today. And then we're gonna break out into the 2 activities Jesse mentioned. One is gonna be where we break out into small groups and have a conversation and really kind of understand your priorities and goals for the process and project. And then we also have some boards pinned up around the room where we want your Post-it notes and what does success look like to you, and get you engaged in kind of a dot exercise. So we start to understand your words and priorities that will kind of be guiding principles for the project and everything that moves forward. And then at meeting number 2, and this is scheduled for January 14th at 6 p.m., which is a Tuesday. So again, I hope you all can make this one. We're going to be back with the building program and have both chiefs kind of talk you through their program needs and what we're proposing. And then we'll have a site update. We'll have our structural and civil engineer. We'll talk about the challenges with this existing building and the site infrastructure and those elements. And then we're also going to come back and have a list of comparable facilities that are applicable to the coast, the essential facility requirements, are really applicable to this project, so you can see comparable facilities. This one will be fun because we'll have tables laid out and we'll actually have site plans, and we'll work with you and start moving boxes around on this site and kind of play architect for a little bit of just testing what is viable, what can we think, and just get as much feedback into that process as we can. And then we'll also take everything we heard today and rank it and see, okay, we heard 15 kind of goals for the project, and try and tailor that to, okay, what are the top 5 really big concerns that are going to guide things. And that will set the stage for meeting number 3. And what meeting number 3, we're going to have all the what we call massing options, which is the big picture moves of how to kind of program and kind of the building elements sit on the site. We'll have all those across the top, and then we'll have your priorities down the left. And then we'll be able to do the pros and cons between those. And this process has been really successful for us to start to really find the ones that are, this development option is meeting the highest priorities. And we're going to break out with groups with you and actually start to see what 2 are the best strategies that are evolving that we want to explore moving forward. And then we'll also have a visioning exercises where we'll have a bunch of imagery and what is the right type of development when you drive down Main Street. What's the type of building that you feel represents Gearhart, and what that character and quality that you're going for. And we'll get that feedback here, which will then set the stage for our final meeting, where we're going to come to you with 2 site plans, 2 floor plans, 2 cost estimates of kind of 2 clear developed options for the development, and work with you kind of through that same matrix to evaluate which one does the community is in alignment with your goals for budget, design, longevity. And then that recommendation from this group is what would go to council as a recommendation. So that's the upcoming process. So you can kind of see the 4 meetings we have planned. And then we will be available where, as we break out and do the workshop, if there's any additional questions later, feel free to come up to me. Yeah, we're very excited. I think the success of this will be your engagement and kind of getting your feedback on the design, so it evolves in alignment with your goals.
Thanks, John. So I want to talk a little bit about how we approach the design of public buildings. It's not like designing your house. It's a little bit different. And we sort of approach it in a much different way. I've been in practice for 26 years. Most of that time has been on public projects of different kinds. At every one of any public project I've been a part of, somebody somewhere always references another piece of architecture. And it's this one. Right? We don't want our building to become a Taj Mahal or be a Taj Mahal. And the reason for that is that in the United States, the Taj Mahal represents extravagance. It represents the most expensive thing we can do for the smallest process or smallest outcome. The reality is that this is a tomb for initially 1 person and eventually 2 people. And if anything, it's more a representation of our capacity as humans for sort of monument to love and loss. And so it's not necessarily the best example of, you know, how we should approach public buildings, but if this is extravagance, if this is one end of the spectrum, the other end of the spectrum that we don't necessarily want to do is this, right? Then for multiple reasons. One is that this building won't last any longer than 15 to 20 years. The building that you're in has lasted 70 or so, 50, something like this, yeah, right? So if we want our public investments to be significant and to last, this other end of the spectrum doesn't necessarily work either. And so looking at architecture in a long-term time span is very important. And what we believe is that what it means to design public architecture means that it has the opportunity to represent who you are as a community. It's a reflection of and how you think your community should be seen. And if we are designing for longevity and long-term, that if we're designing for something that should last to 2075 or even 2125, that message of who you are as a community gets to be read by 5 generations forward. And so it's not just about what the dollar is today, how it functions, but it is really about what message do you want to tell 5 generations forward about who you are as residents of Gerhardt and what you think about the future of this community. And that's a real opportunity, and it's what makes us excited about public architecture. So if this is a fire station, and that's a fire station, and even that's a fire station, none of those, I would guess, feel appropriate for here. Maybe you will tell me my experience, most people say no. And so the process that we're going through, not only does it help determine the size and the budget and the appropriateness of the facility we're designing, it also helps you determine what this facility should look like and feel like and how it should fit in your community. And that we feel almost. So there is a process. There's this thing that we go through, this public moving of Post-it notes on boards. And the value of that is that if we asked everybody in the room what their favorite color was, and then try to apply that to a piece of architecture, we'd get this, right? And that's not what we're looking for either. We have to get to a consensus about who you are as a community and what your values are, to be able to create architecture that is not about someone's individual personal expression, including ours. It's not about us. It's not about what we think looks cool or what we saw in a magazine that looks great. It's about what you feel should be appropriate for your community. And so, and this just real quickly is a process that we went through for a new farmers market pavilion in Eugene. And Eugene has very involved citizenry. We went through several rounds of visioning, similar to what we'll do at different steps along the way. And we came up after going through that process of these 2 sort of guiding principles from them. Imagine a farmer straight from the field sitting in a city council meeting. And we want a building that uses wood in an innovative way. That was our charge. And so from that, we developed 2 different approaches, looking at 2 different types of agricultural architecture, looking for one that fits best in a downtown setting. And we came up with this, which is now actually that, which is in the square across from Saturday Market in Eugene. And it feels like a greenhouse to a certain extent. It sort of is warm and inviting, and it uses wood in an innovative way. So that is that translation from the things that we will go through with you today and over the next 4 meetings, and how that gets to something that's built. Yeah.
Yep. So this section, a lot of people drive by the exterior of police and fire stations, and maybe you've been in the lobby or you see through the apparatus bay doors. But I just want to give you a flavor of kind of what are the type of spaces that go into this, and then we have boards up here with these floor plans, so I'll kind of give a highlight here, and then we'll have a time that you can come ask a bunch of questions of kind of the technical spaces if you're curious. The 2 projects that I'm going to show, I think I just want to caveat, both are independent, right? So one is a volunteer fire station, one is a police department. But in this project, it's actually going to be a combined facility. So we're looking for efficiencies between the 2 of how we can share as much space as we can. And then an essential facility, each one of these is tailored to the community that they serve. So in our process of designing spaces and we call it kind of purpose-built facilities, we're actually going to work to tailor it to your specific operations in your community. So these are example projects, but we are actually working with each department, tailoring it to your specific needs, and we'll come back with specific kind of programs of what you need. And so the first project is the Lafayette Volunteer Fire Station, and Ian and I completed this in 2021. And overall, it's about 9,646 square feet. And with the fire station, everything really centers around the apparatus space. So this area in blue is the main apparatus space, the space we're in now, right, where the engines and apparatus and rigs are all housed. And there's a lot of technical spaces that surround. One of the ones that like the turnouts are the gear that the fire department kind of wears when they're actually in fighting a fire. And that has special chemicals. It's a 3-layer system, but the outside has special chemicals that can actually be damaged by diesel and UV rays. And so those are ones in facilities you actually want to either put in enclosed cabinets or in a separate room to protect the longevity of those. So those are things like that we'll think about as those technical spaces, really providing and supporting those in the apparatus bay. And then in Lafayette, there's the kitchen, day room, locker, showers, bunks, and fitness. And highlighting here the bunk rooms, specifically in Lafayette, it's a small community. And they found most of their volunteers actually come from out of district. So the bunk rooms allowed them to support out of district volunteers. And this project was actually so successful with the bunk rooms that they've had so much use with these. They're actually exploring expanding them at additional stations in the district because it's allowed that out of district volunteers to really provide their response to their community. And then there's the office, kind of the public vestibule, and then the radio room with the technology and kind of watch room to monitor calls and the office component. So that's at a high level, some of the elements of the fire station. And then with the police department, we actually just completed this project this year. This is a project in Milton Freewater over in Eastern Oregon. And this is a new police department and dispatch for Milton Freewater. And the overall size is 7,500 square feet. And with the police department, there's the public lobby, but I think what I want to highlight there is police departments, you really want to be sensitive with information. So some police departments just have an open lobby and you're having a conversation with an officer just there that's open to public view. We really recommend that they have report taking rooms where those conversations, when you're reporting an event or talking with an officer, can be private and confidential. And so those spaces are seen in police facilities. We also look at all the kind of technical support spaces. So with evidence, it's really important to maintain chain of custody, especially when you're looking at court cases. And that, so processing evidence, storing evidence long-term, you need those spaces. As well as there's a lot of training spaces for officers, as well as equipment storage, armory, those spaces that support the technical functions. As well as just general office spaces. I think a lot of times we just think about patrol officers, but there's admin, the records staff, there's evidence techs, there's administration, there's that kind of office space that supports those. So that at a high level is kind of what's in these boards, and we're definitely happy to cover that in additional detail later in the workshop.
Is this my part next? Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
skip that, thanks. Okay, we're gonna go back to the site, which is the site here. This is what we have. So it's an aerial view. I mean, this is Google Maps with a line drawn around it. So, you know, we're in the fire department here. And the back of this building is part of Public Works. So it's technically all one building, but this whole rear section is occupied by Public Works. Oops. Oh. Okay. This is also Public Works building. And then this is the City Hall space. And this is all of the room we have. So if you can imagine that, obviously, I think it's obvious, your fire and police need to be active and have a building that is safe and working while construction is happening. So the challenge part of the solutions we have to come up with is, with this type of limited space, how do we maybe like build a new fire department somewhere and then demo this? Right? These things have to be active. So these are some of the solutions we're gonna have to think through. It's definitely gonna be a challenge to work all that out. As one of the activities, John mentioned that we wanna do with you is like, give you this box and some spaces, and then you can play with it too, so you have some practice of understanding the challenge of it. But one of these buildings at least has got to go to make it all fit, okay? So start to wrap your heads around that concept. But this is all we have to work with. There was a little sliver over here that may be on the table, but a little tiny sliver isn't really enough to put an entire fire station. So this is what we have. And we're gonna be, we did get geotechnical engineering. They came out, they had a drill rig back here. That tells us what the soil is, all the way down to like 80 feet or so, I think, or 100. So we're gonna be actually studying that this week. Then I get to bring you to the fun part, money. Just kidding, it's tedious. So I want to talk to you about the parts and pieces of a budget because it's actually quite complex. And it's really easy in this type of process early on for people to boil it down to something really simple, like, oh, this should be 500 bucks a square foot, this should be 800 bucks a square foot. And I want to explain all of the different things, so that you have an understanding that it's quite a bit more complex than that. So, what we have, I'm gonna go from left to right. So how we put together a budget, some of the terms. We refer to hard costs and soft costs. A hard cost is a construction cost. What do we have to pay the contractor to build this building around us? That's a hard cost. A soft cost is, what are all of the other things that we have to spend money on to get this done? We have to pay architects, we have to pay project managers, we have to pay for geotechnical, survey, testing and inspections, furniture. So there's a balance there. Hard costs are usually like 70 to 75% of the total project budget. Soft costs are usually closer to like 25 to 30%. So as we go forward, the cost estimate that we're gonna present to you at the last meeting, which is like probably March or April, is we're looking at cost if we were building this today. We can't build it today because we still have to get funding, we still have to complete the design, we have to do permitting. It's gonna be a couple of years out in the future. So once we do the cost estimate today, then we talk about, we add in escalation. We have to predict what the economy is going to do. Currently, our escalation rate for the construction market is about 6% annually. This fluctuates over time, but it's been holding pretty steadily there the last several years. In 21, it got crazy. John's got a graph he's gonna show you later. Anyways, we have to put the construction costs into future dollars, okay? Escalation happens, or inflation, if you wanna call it. Oh, dang it.
Josh.
Josh, I messed it up, all right,
Try to swipe into the previous slide and I'll go back.
that's all right, that's all right. And so once we're predicting what the construction costs are in the future, the other thing we add on at this point in time is what we call a design contingency. And that is a reflection of how little we know about the project. We're doing conceptual designs, like this process here is literally like a floor plan and kind of like, what does the outside kind of look like? And that's really most of what we know, a little bit of site work. And so we add in a contingency to say, you know what? There's so many variables we haven't defined yet that we need to add in like a fluff factor, you know, maybe it's 10% because we just don't know everything yet. This is an iterative process. Then we have to add in what we call a construction contingency. That's usually about 4 to 5% of the construction cost. That is for the contractor to be nimble during construction. This never goes away. This allows them to, I don't know, maybe they're doing site work and you have a lot of rain and more dirt gets washed out into the street than anticipated. They use some construction contingency to do that, or the paint gets all dinged up when they're in finishing and they don't know who did it and they have to pay to fix it. So it allows the contractor to just kind of handle little tiny things that are hard to estimate at the time of construction. All of that together now becomes what we call the GMP, or gross maximum price, or guaranteed maximum price. This is the amount of the construction contract at the end of the day, when we sign it, when they start the work. Okay, so GMP, that's right here, that's an important number to know. Then we have all the soft costs. Again, that's our time, it's permitting, it's, we have to buy some insurance, maybe we have to hire a lawyer to like, review the contracts and stuff. So, it's also equipment. Fire station has a lot of equipment in it, so that could be quite a bit of money too. We don't know what these are yet. And then on top of that, we also have to acknowledge that the city needs an extra contingency. At this early point in time, we put together budgets for like a million tiny things. But again, there's still so many variables we don't understand that we need some amount of money to say, I didn't estimate the permitting quite correctly. It was harder than we thought. We're gonna need some extra money. So an owner contingency at this phase is probably about another 10 to 15%-ish of the total costs. And all of that together gets you to the total project budget. That's the part That's the amount that the bond needs to be, or whatever financing mechanism that the city goes for. So I tell you all this because in the future now, when we have the whole project budget, I'm gonna take this and we're gonna, oh, I did it again, touch screens. We're gonna take all this and actually put in real numbers, you know, we're gonna say, okay, the construction costs for, I don't know, 10 million, and this is gonna be an extra 1 million, where you're gonna see all of these numbers real applied to this project using all of these same terms. So this is an introduction to what the terms of the budget are. The other reason I wanna mention it is it's very common for people to say like, oh, hey, my friend built a fire station in Yakima and it was $500 a square foot. How come you can't do it for that? My question is, which column are you talking about? When you say $500 per square foot, do you mean that's what it costs right now? Do you mean that's what the total contract amount was? Or do you mean that's the total amount of funding you had? And I'll be honest, nobody ever knows, right? They don't. And I have a personal story from that. I used to work at Portland Public Schools. I was working on a high school and another high school was getting designed at the exact same time. We had almost the exact same square footage. They were practically the same program, all the same number of classrooms and all that. And one news article said, oh, this one school has $150 million from this column, but this other school's budget is $220 million. And they were like, all the rich white kids get the expensive school and the poor kids do not. But they were using two different numbers. The journalist doesn't know to ask, people don't know to ask, nobody knows to ask that question. It's infuriating. I don't understand, half the news articles I read, it doesn't tell you what they're talking about, but this is the real cost. These are real costs. You can't build a building without architects. So that's just a cautionary tale to be skeptical when those numbers are thrown about. They can help you kind of understand a range, but at the end of the day, when we talk dollars per square foot, this could be, you know, 800, it could be 1,200, we don't know. It's gonna give you a wide range, but there's a lot of variables and a lot of variety in here, okay? So just want you to understand that because this is very nuanced and trying to find a comparable project is really difficult. We can't compare something in Yakima, it doesn't make sense. Here on the coast, you have a lot of really challenging things to deal with, okay? Your labor costs alone, just to bring workers out here to build this. A large general contractor estimates they add in 40% extra for labor costs, accounting for the coast over Portland. That's huge. You can't compare that to another project in Portland. We've got a huge amount of natural disasters out here. Like we're gonna be designing 4 tsunamis. To my knowledge, and I think yours, this is in a very high tsunami zone in this facility, in this location. I don't think we're aware of another first responders facility that has been built in a tsunami zone in Oregon. So we're gonna be a bit trailblazing with the state to get through a permitting process, right? Yeah, it's gonna be hard. Exactly, is the face you should be making. And that's why we need some contingency, okay? So I'm trying to prep you for like, when we have a lot of contingency, you're gonna look at a budget at the end and be like, Jesse, there's contingency plus contingency plus contingency. We've got so much contingency. It's needed. It's needed because this is hard. We also have conditions in the soil. The soil conditions on the coast can be challenging. There's a lot of sand. You need a lot of deep foundations. I mentioned at the town hall, in the Manzanita Police Station, which is only 1,200 square feet, we had to spend $500,000 in deep foundations. Let that sink in, literally to the earth, okay? So that makes comparing to other projects really hard without understanding what those projects were. What did they entail? A project from 10 years ago, the costs are not even remotely relevant. They're barely relevant if you look at something that was built in 2020. Because we've had so much inflation over the last couple of years, you know it from your groceries, it's the same in construction. Okay, that is an introduction to budget, that's, I think enough on that, unless you think I missed something. Is that it on my part? Yep.
So as Jesse said, the escalation is a real thing, and when we start getting to the cost estimating portion of this several meetings from now, I'll tell you right now, it's gonna feel more than you think it should. Because your experience if you have any direct experience with construction, you're gonna say, oh yeah, I built that project in Yakima as the example for X amount. The reason that that has changed significantly, particularly within the past several years, is that if you're looking at, this is a graph of the escalation percentage over the past several years, actually since 2008. And if you look at 2020 to 2023, that's a pretty steep incline. Historically, we've seen 3 to 4, currently we're seeing close to 6, as Jesse mentioned. The way to sort of keep that in your head is it's 0.5% per month. If it's at 6%. So every month that we sort of delay construction or bidding the project, that's what that means, it's 0.5% that we're losing in buying power. There's a couple of other things about this cost index, and this comes from Mortensen, who is a national contractor. Lots of the national contractors publish the sort of a graph like this. The other sort of standard is the engineering news record. That's been kept as a metric since 1913. And what you'll see within that information and the one that you showed here is that it's dipped in terms of a negative escalation or a de-escalation twice. Once during the Great Depression and once during the Great Recession. Those are the only 2 times it's gotten cheaper to build. It's only gotten more expensive. And so keep that in mind. I'm not even, yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
I wanna add one thing
Yeah.
onto that, is one thing from another project that came up. Is a community member was like, I don't understand why we're getting penalized for building later. And it's not a penalty, escalation just means costs are going up, whether we like it or not, we have no control over it. And so until we can actually bid the project and lock in numbers, costs are just going up over time. And we're not miracle workers, we can't stop that, that's what that means, it's not a penalty to like delaying making a decision for 6 months, for example.
It's not our decision or choice.
Correct.
And so applying that kind of idea to actual dollars. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, we don't know what the budget for this project is. These are hypothetical numbers. We have no idea. We haven't even gotten to the point where we can put pen to paper. So please don't get hung up on the numbers themselves. These are for illustrative purposes only. But if we were talking about a project that cost 15 million today, that's not gonna be our actual cost, because as Jesse said, we still need time to design, we still need time to go through permitting, there's a whole lot more process left. So if we actually started a project in 2027, that's the amount of escalation that we face. And then from that point forward, it's $83,000 a month in lost buying power. And then subsequently, if you go backwards, if you were to have built this project in 1980, it'd be 3.1 million. Right, and so it's important to tie that percentage to actual numbers, because it eventually will become down to sort of brass tacks, as it were. And the actual numbers that the community will have to figure out how to fund.
I was gonna talk about this, right?
Yep.
So this is just kind of a brief history of this project in this community. That it was looked at in 2006, they went out for a bond vote, for 3.75 million, it failed. Then there was the High Point site in 2020, we're looking at a facility, just over 10 million. The land negotiations didn't work out. And then tried again in the Highland Cottages site, but missed a bond ballot deadline, so that one didn't work, that would have been 13 million. And then a 22, again, back at the Highland site, went out for a bond, that did not pass, that was in 2022 for 14.5 million. So this facility could have been done for cheaper, in the past, right? And this is where we're at, and it's only going up. So this isn't about shaming anybody and like trying to like slap you on the wrist or anything. But if, you know, it's fair to understand that the cost will only go up. You know, we're all here, the city is motivated to find, you know, to solve this problem, and to get this project done. And it's only gonna get more expensive with time. So that's where we're hoping everybody's coming to the table, like, all right, let's figure out how to get this done this time. So, that's just a brief history there. And then, oh, we're gonna transition now to the workshop activities. If you're watching online, there's gonna be some links pasted that you can respond to, and it's the same questions we're gonna be asking. And then we're gonna break into groups. If you just give us like a couple minutes to figure out how to divide and conquer, there's probably gonna be maybe 4 to 6 people per group. And we're gonna grab you guys and talk to you and ask you some questions for a while. And then we're gonna transition and do board activities. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so feel perfect.
Okay. You have,
Just turn around. All right, I'm gonna move back.
And then you can go grab a group?
Cool.
Yeah. You're grab a group, like 4 or 5. Huh? Yes. Grab a group. Huh? No, this is my.
Oh, I like
So we wanna like. Same thing. This project.
All right. I didn't know. And it.
I know it. So I said, why?
I met with people, I know there's good intention, so how does that get, how do you feel like it's honest about it?
Without that, you never get any drugs.
Yeah.
And what if you like, see the reaction of what we're doing actually doesn't affect it, or maybe why you came to that conclusion. So like, hey, we're talking about these extra things. Half the groups at the time last week were very concerned about having a spot where people can publish.
I think there's something like 20.
Okay, that's why we took
20 or more people that are going to call it.
So I'm just telling you, what we studied. What we studied, why we decided it, so we're giving you along. We've been involved a lot.
Are not being considered robbed, or there's additional.
I've been the same. What's your project working on? it's really, part of that. My standpoint. I am. So I understand what's the aspect of it, which is really. Color, it would be what. You can't do it. Even out there, neighbors going out and breaking up. But most of the people are willing to
The city has started. So our goal is like we're just programs,
I've done that on other projects where it's like. Yeah, exactly. You know, that's the key. Much money, I really try to like, incentivize stay on track, which also I think is like. I think some good not have time. About like, fun, and communication.
At some level, though, not approval of this. City. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea. Especially that's right.
People know that they what they want,
But they don't. Yeah, I do.
actually.
No, it's like that. Nursing bill, but you're gonna fire and it's all nursing. You would pay for it. Oh, that should be. I studied this more. I provide this now. I'm all. I'm part of all this one. Experience. I heard transparency. Yeah. Said that. You know, they're gonna have to, so we spoke at this.
Kind of like. I've never had one client that asked that. Okay, well, that's why I just. No problem. It would be a great fun. How do you? Just going. I think that's a great point.
I've got two, from Manzanito, have a similar work. System. 20 years, you know, together, all the same day, and it had community groups and stuff. People, it's like, you kind of understand. Just kind of but now there's like, you know, 2 a.m. people like try to home. How do you feel that these facilities how they are now? How do you think that either support or pivot the fact that your fire department or
We have the building as it is.
yeah, like how do you think it affects them?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think it's much. It was built with all their spheres.
So you want to go. They will support it's anomalous. Right, well, all of, everybody. But until it's non-resident.
Yeah, your grandfather's.
Then you move from one area to the models that's the money to pop. All of this stuff.
How these facilities affect your fire.
It's good. Can be a lot of. I don't know.
I'm not a. Gutters and.
Must be.
I think the volunteers. Very cool.
They don't want it.
Yeah. That's what I'm
Yeah, I mean, I've been enjoying it. Maybe the whole year though. First time. Yeah. Yes. So it is. Yeah, I did change my mind. Just I've been here, how things grow so much, and if they still rely on this navigated building. That. Can't open them, have that hand open. Somebody has to go out there, pull the truck out. You're hopefully it's gonna be closed. Nothing that's gonna get taken out by the time all of us are going. Super basic.
I know.
The whole idea of like bathroom and then right there, it's like our lockers are right there with all of our gear and stuff like that. And we know this one, they can pay, had to back us right in.
No. They have to leave the door. They have to leave the door. Before they can close them.
Breathing tanks.
And now all of the we need like. I've not been here. Everything else is 40 feet of elevation. Is there any way? It's like the 15 soil, you know, it's right. It's very
Yeah, they were just against, I felt like people were against it before they actually. It was close by. It wasn't even valid. It's not my.
And the state will permit this, I mean, that per this will be passed, everybody believes that the state will permit it. So they have some idea that do the. Go to their station.
It's all. Yeah.
When you have a meeting like that, let's say, is there anybody here?
Probably, I mean, not just.
The long term. All gonna be on fire and release. So as long as it's not.
So both from a standpoint of, oh, well, officers, like kind of planning for reasonable amount of staff. And resiliency for all of the natural hazards.
We have more to discuss. We're not, we're now, in little thousand homes here, that's how all of it's gonna be paid for.
Yeah.
You're gonna do a lot of that. That's gonna be enough reliable already. Location and your company.
Also, he was Belgian.
We don't have enough now.
We talked about having the ability to. Platform, and that's something you consider.
We're trying to get the right out. Even if they didn't.
Yeah, I don't want to be ridiculous.
Is so much more because.
Yes, I
Heard that, from somebody else.
Higher.
Yeah.
You gotta fully operate. You gotta operate on it, so it's a lot. They have a role. We're trying to play, it's like sitting there with playing the games. It's like you're supposed to run. It's like, it's not.
Facility already has their adults. Even then. I don't even know. Talking about, I don't think it's-
On site.
Great
or-
project.
They were- had everything. No, I was just thinking of- I think it was the light
Warning.
Yes, 3 hours a week, get out of the house. Some locations will subsidize.
So you're smart about how you work. Stuff like that, but like. Some amount of flooding, really still safe.
Check in with one more activity where once you get notes and dots.
That's why people lower level parking. Yeah, you alone.
If I do want to make sure you have time, you can the second.
Like 5 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes.
So everyone. So. In 5 minutes, we'll wrap up and then do the second activity.
Any opinions, it's very residential.
What's your favorite thing about the community? Yeah. So what's your favorite thing about the whole structure? But yes, it's glad again.
What I really like.
It would be.
Yeah.
That's why the book.
Deer Park, remember? Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you were kind of separate, where were you?
And other people's lives.
You can be there. I'm gonna, so, you know, I'm gonna ask.
It's really like this, it can cost whatever. the price is. And the problem is that I think they put in plans that, you know, something that-
Yeah, it is absolutely.
And if you're gonna have park here, you're gonna like your. You got different.
Surgery.
There you go.
Your price would be like, okay, to the-
Yeah.
You know,
Like your
goes on. That's what I'm saying.
But it is.
That's what you're retired. But then there's a lot of people that tax are anymore. Today.
No.
How did you do?
Yeah. So what should a city building do?
We saw that.
And so our meeting is you say.
It's time for now.
You're right.
That's right. In the county.
We always think that's not the slow down. We have. And so.
Yeah, well, for example,
Years ago, and none of that information is available. Now the information is available. It's great. So I mean, it's a shame to see, I mean.
But like, I. Maybe a little bit, because I
Yeah, sure. All right, so we're gonna wrap up this great conversation now. So I appreciate, everyone, you guys took a lot of good notes, so this was our chance to kind of have smaller conversations. Our next activity is we have boards here, and then we have the exact same questions and boards on the other side. And so our team has Post-it notes. So what we basically have 4 questions. The first question is, imagine it's opening day of the new public safety facility. What are people saying about the new building? That's question 1. Imagine it's your first time coming to the new public safety facility. How has the building improved your customer experience? So that's 2. Number 3 is, imagine it's your first time coming to the new public safety facility as a resident. What are you most proud of in the space? And then lastly, imagine it's 2077 and a young Gearhart resident is part of the 50th anniversary celebration of the facility. What decisions did we make today that they would be grateful for? So these 4 questions, we want you just to write down your initial thoughts on a Post-it note and put it up. And then the next one is like a heat map of words where there's a list of words, and then you can take 4 dots and just put the dots next to the words that resonate most with you about the project. And we'll just start to see where the dots kind of collect around the words. So it's a pretty simple exercise. And Ian has pens and Post-it notes and stuff over there, as well as this is our chance as we break out. We have the floor plans of the stations we showed and some of the cost graphics. So we'll have some of the design team members and chiefs over here. If you do have follow-up questions on some of the technical requirements, some of the costs, anything you heard today, we're open for questions. Anything else team members want to add?
Are these activities available online?
Yeah.
So if we want to weigh in on online.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that have come up too is for people in the community that weren't able to be here today. And then so the people online got links to the surveys already. So these activities are available. And then also if you want to let friends or people know in the community that weren't able to attend, they will be able to participate in the exact same questions over the next week or so.
And access how?
So right now the links are in the Zoom meeting and the city can make them available
On the blog.
on the blog. Yeah,
City blogging the website.
okay, perfect. Thanks,
It'll take
Jen.
us a little bit to get it there, but we'll get it there.
Yep.
Okay.
So for the activities, we're visiting Ian for Post-its and stickers?
Yeah, and I would say, because there's a lot of people here, this is why we have 2 boards, so the other room, as we get people and feedback, is the exact same activity, so you can spread out between the boards and.
And is this the last activity? Is everybody free to go after this?
Yes, but before you leave, we've asked that, we have some surveys you fill out. We want to know how we're doing. All right, we've got 3 more of these meetings. If there's something that you didn't hear or something that didn't work for you, we want to know about it so we can tailor the next one. So there's a QR code for you to scan with your phone, or there's just a paper copy for you to fill out before you leave. Just let us know if this is sort of working for you in terms of, understanding what we're trying to do here. And if not, we want to know about it.
What if they complain that the space isn't very warm?
Okay, so before everybody leaves, I do want to again say thank you for coming and participating in this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You are so valuable to this process. Thank you.
I knew that wrong.
Yeah.
You're assuming I have the answer. You sound just right on. I don't.